Institute. Thank you so much for coming out to this evening's candidate forum for the 2025 federal election in Cape Breton, Canso, Antigonish. First, let me begin by acknowledging we are meeting this evening on Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. The Mi'kmaq people have stewarded these lands since time immemorial, and we are truly grateful. As we continue down the path of reconciliation, let us not forget the 7 grandfather teachings of love, wisdom, respect, humility, courage, truth, and honesty. We are all treaty people. The Mulroney Institute was founded in 2018 in honor of former Prime Minister and St. FX alum, the Honorable Brian Mulroney. The Institute is home to 20 research chairs and fellows and provides programming and learning opportunities for students and community alike. For a fulsome account of the work we have done this past year, please visit our website. But some highlights have included welcoming 4 senators, hosting panels on the US election and presidency, supporting students in extracurricular activities such as policy case competitions and Model UN, and tonight, our 3rd candidate forum. Democracy has truly kept us busy this year. Our guiding principle at the Institute are around 3 pillars: decency, dignity, and decorum. These are said to be at the core of who Mr. Mulroney was. This means that everyone is capable of decency, everyone deserves dignity, and debate and discourse should be respectful and civil. The format we use for the candidate forum, which you will hear about in a moment, is designed to showcase these pillars. We expect those here on the stage, in the audience, and those online model this behavior, not only to our neighbors, but to demonstrate to the next generation, our students, how we are not enemies, but opponents, in the words of the Honorable Jean Chrétien. Let me now introduce this evening's moderator. Dr. Asa McKercher will be coming up shortly, is the Stephen K. Hudson Chair in Canada-US Relations. Dr. McKercher is a specialist in Canada-US Relations, Canadian foreign policy, US foreign policy, and politics and culture in North America. He's previously taught at Queen's University, McMaster University, and the Royal Military College of Canada. He holds a PhD from Cambridge University. For anyone in the audience, there might be 1 or 2 of you, who watches a lot of political media, you may recognize Dr. McKercher from his many appearances. He's been featured on CBC, CTV, Global, and CBS. We're very fortunate to have Dr. McKercher as a member of the Mulroney Institute. So Dr. McKercher will come up shortly, and he will introduce the candidates, review the forum, and then ask this evening's questions. First, though, I would like to invite Mr. Jacob Cruchet to the stage. Mr. Cruchet is the president of St. FX Student Union, our co-sponsor for this evening's event. Mr. Cruchet, a public policy and governance student, throw that in every once in a while, will deliver words of welcome on behalf of the Student Union. Please enjoy this evening.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jacob Cruchet, and I'm the president of the St. FX Students Union. I'm only going to take a few moments of your time, but I want to start by thanking Dr. Harling-Stalker and the Mulroney Institute for their collaboration on us to host another one of these forums. And I also want to thank, and I invite all of you to also thank, all of the candidates here tonight for taking time out of their busy schedule to be here. Thank you. I'm going to take a few moments to talk a little bit about why we're here. And it's not just because we love democracy, we do that too, but it's because we want to talk a little bit about our campaign to get out the vote. We've hosted 3 Get Out the Vote campaigns this year. 1 municipal, 1 provincial, and 1 federal. And it hasn't been easy work, but we want to thank the Mullen Institute for helping us out along the way. Get Out the Vote is a non-political campaign to help students get to the polls, to empower students and youth with the knowledge that their voice matters. Tomorrow at 9 p.m., the final day of the on-campus voting polling, or on-campus vote poll closes. Before then, and it's been happening for today and yesterday as well, you can go there as a student, as a community member, and cast a vote. You can cast a vote in this riding or in your home riding. And I want to emphasize that, because a lot of people don't realize that you can also cast a vote for the riding where you're from, if it's not here in Antigonish. So, I want to remind everyone that that is happening, that that is closing at 9 p.m. tomorrow. And I want to welcome anyone with questions to please see, we have Elections Canada outside of the room, just over there. We're really fortunate to have them, and they are more than happy to answer any questions that anybody has about whether you're eligible to vote, whether, what to bring to vote, questions like that, and they're just right out there. Before I close, I want to mention that as the Students' Union, for any students in attendance or students who are watching live, if you have any questions and you're not here to talk to Elections Canada, we welcome you to reach out to any of the Student Union exec. We have Islam here. He is one of our exec, and we are all happy to answer any questions about voting. Or just please feel free to reach out to DM us on Instagram if you have any questions about how to vote, what to bring, those sorts of things. So, without further ado, I think it is time that we get into our debate. Thank you all for showing up tonight. Let's have a healthy, respectful, and lively debate here. I'm looking forward to it. So, without further ado, I'll welcome Dr. Kircher to take the stage. Thanks.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It's a distinct pleasure to be here for a number of reasons. We are in a federal election in this country, a remarkable thing that generations of Canadians before us have done in times of peace and war, in times of economic dislocation and chaos, in times when things were good and there were sunny ways or not. And so we find ourselves in another one of these elections, which, as someone of a historical background, as a trained historian, this could well be a very historical election, or maybe not. We'll never know. We'll know in 25 or 30 years, perhaps. But certainly it seems like we're on the cusp of a very important election in our country, and so it's fantastic, and I think the full room attests to the fact that there's a lot of interest, obviously, in this. For people who've just come in, there's some room up front if you don't want to stand in the back. There's room up front if you'd like, but it's up to you. This isn't, though, a debate. It's meant to be a forum, and so this is a format we've run provincially for the provincial election and the municipal election this last fall. So rather than an open debate where there'll be crosstalk and different sorts of things, what we'll do is each candidate will have an opening statement. Then we'll have several rounds of questions, and then each candidate will have a closing statement. So what this is essentially equal time for everyone. They'll have equal time to address their questions, the points they want to do. And so all candidates have agreed to that, but what I'd also like you to do is also to agree essentially to those rules, to allow equal time for everybody. And so we don't want, if that's okay, hooting and hollering, we don't want clapping, we don't want booing, etc. Okay? So if we can keep a modicum of decorum, that would be really appreciated. Because there's students present, and we want to be respectful and set a good example for our youngers. But also, again, we are here in a country where we value peace, order, and good government, in contrast to some other countries where those don't seem to be values that are highly prized, let's say. So let's just keep things civil, and I'm sure we can all do that. Okay, just a reminder that this is recorded, and there'll be a photographer stalking around somewhere. I don't know where he is, but he's around. Oh, there he is. Fantastic. Wonderful. So I hope that's okay. If not, I guess we could leave, and watch it online. There we are. Okay, so the candidates, I'll just introduce them in the order they are here, in alphabetical order. So next to me here is the Liberal candidate, Jaime Batiste. He's a community member of the Eskasone First Nation and has been a member of Parliament since 2019, becoming the first Mi'kmaq elected to the Canadian Parliament. He holds a JD from the Schulich School of Law and a degree in Mi'kmaq Studies from Cape Breton University. Next to him is the NDP candidate, Joanna Clark, a community activist and public school teacher at Dalbray Academy, having previously taught at the Strait Regional Centre for Education and Le Conseil Scolaire Acadien. She's a graduate of Université Sainte-Anne and has worked in the past with the Canadian Federation of Students. Next, we have the Conservative candidate, Alan McMaster, the MLA for Inverness from 2009 to 2024. He's a graduate of this institution and served as Deputy Premier and has held the provincial portfolios of Finance, Treasury Board, Labour Relations, and Gaelic Affairs. Next, we have the People's Party candidate, Ryan Smythe, an entrepreneur and award-winning software author specializing in blockchain and Internet of Things. And finally, we have our independent candidate, Rebecca Wall, a local business owner and entrepreneur and founder of Ripple FX TV media platform. So we've chosen by sort of random order the order of opening statements. And so, Mr. Smythe, you're first with 3 minutes.
This should be a very interesting evening, I think. But first, I want to ask everybody a question. What kind of Canada do you want? For the last 10 years, we've seen some questionable things. People have different opinions on the trucker convoy, and some people love it, some people hate it. But freezing people's bank accounts, arresting people for speech, is not the kind of Canada that I want to live in. I'm not sure whether you want to. This is up to you to decide. Now, the Vancouver East candidate, one candidate in Vancouver East, just had her bank account frozen, just in time for the election. That's convenient. I think we can do better. The People's Party has 4 basic principles: individual freedom, personal responsibility, fairness, and respect. The Mulroney Institute here in these events is absolutely wonderful, in maintaining, that level of respect. Everybody's always very good. Individual freedom is important for many reasons. One of the most important individual freedoms that we kind of forget about sometimes is economic freedom. The People's Party wants to reduce your taxes. It wants to make a business-friendly environment. It wants to make it easy to do business, to start a business, to get a job, to get a good-paying job. And I think that's the kind of Canada that we want, where people are wealthier, happier, more prosperous. And I'm going to be running short on time. I could talk forever, but I will return the remaining 30 seconds or so. Thank you.
We'll bank the time. I appreciate it. Ms. Clark?
Good evening, everybody. I can be heard at the back, I hope. First, I'd like to thank the Mulroney Institute for organizing this event. We're going to be getting into a variety of issues tonight, but I want to begin with what Canadians are facing this election, the choices that leave us in this riding, and why I'm asking you to vote NDP. The elephant in the room, of course, is Donald Trump and his threats to the global economy and to Canada's very existence. Trump has made this election an existential one for Canada and Canadians, and are rightly being required to judge which party leader and which party can best defend our country from that threat. While we continue to watch the liberal and conservative narrative play out and overshadow so many issues that continue to plague our communities, the big picture is clear. We know that Pierre Poilievre's policy land to the right, and we also know that Mark Carney's liberal policies will push his party to the right. And issues like income inequality, affordability, poverty, and climate change are going to take a back seat, and we cannot afford this. Parliament is going to need the NDP to speak up for issues. However, reduced in numbers, its presence in Parliament may be because neither the Liberals nor the Conservatives will. And what wonderful things happen when Canadians send NDP MPs to Ottawa. We get public health care, employment insurance, indexing of pensions, collective bargaining rights, and now dental care, farmer care, child poverty reduction, and more affordable housing. These programs that the NDP fought for over decades, regardless of where they stood in power. These are the things Canadians point to when someone says we should be the 51st state. Even a small third party can have clout. So, as we proceed with this forum, I ask that you keep the bigger picture in mind. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Mr. Batiste?
Gwe, Menawalotioch, bonjour tout le monde, Kamala Haushef. Greetings, everyone. It's really great to be here with you tonight in Antigonish. I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. I know that I'm new to the riding. This is formerly Sean Fraser's riding, and I know literally and figuratively these are big shoes to fill. And I enjoy the fact that I'm such close friends with him that he knew that when I said I would be taking over this riding, hopefully, is that I promised to look out for his community that he loved so much. And we fought really hard to try to keep the boundaries the same. But I'm the Member of Parliament for Sydney, Victoria. I'm hoping to be the Member of Parliament from Cape Breton, Canso, Antigonish. I've got a law school background. I graduated Dal Law in 2004 after I had gone and taken Mi'kmaq Studies and Public Administration at Cape Breton University. I'm glad to be here at a university. It's no secret that I come from an academic background as a former professor myself, but also my parents were in academia for more than 30 years. They were both graduates of Harvard University. My mother was doctor for the first Mi'kmaq PhD ever. She taught in education for more than 30 years. My father taught in law. With their background of being my father researching treaties and law and my mother's background on education, I was also very proud to be the first treaty education lead for Nova Scotia. And when I hear us acknowledging that we are all treaty people, I think about the work that went into that and the work that people like the Dean of Education, Jeff Orr, over here put. We laid the foundation for what we believed would be a more inclusive and more balanced education system that reflects a lot of the things that we haven't heard over the years, that was brought to light over the years with the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. I also was in the Liberal leadership race. I was the only Atlantic voice in that race, but ultimately I came to the conclusion that what many Canadians are coming to the conclusion of was that Mark Carney is the right person for the right moment. With his ability to push back, with his ability to handle global crises, whether from Brexit or the housing bubble, he guided the Bank of England and the Bank of Canada through these crises. We need that experience. We need that track record. We need Mark Carney in this moment because we need someone to stand up to Trump, and Mark Carney is going to be the person who does that best, and I'm proud to stand with him.
Thank you very much. Mr. McMaster.
Good evening, everybody. People have a choice in this election. They can vote Liberal, they can vote Conservative, they can vote for one of the other parties. They also have another choice. They can choose a candidate who they think will best represent the issues of our region. My Liberal friend here tonight cannot run on the record of his government. Canadians lost confidence in that government. And I think about the upwards of 23 times Nova Scotia Liberal MPs voted to increase the carbon tax at a time when we've seen some of the greatest inflation in a generation. I think about something during my time as MLA in Inverness that was so important to people, roads. And just a year ago, the Liberal Environment Minister said the government shouldn't be investing in roads any longer. In my mind, completely out of touch. In contrast, I am proud to sit here tonight with my record of serving the people of Inverness. 15 years of service, 4 elections. I have done the job, and if you ask people in Inverness, I think they will tell you I've done the job well. I've been reasonable, I've been effective on issues and communicating them, and I spent a lot of time in opposition, and they kept electing me. I think it was because I still got things done for them. So people, you will know what you get from me if you choose me. What you will hear from my Liberal colleague tonight is how everybody needs to be afraid, and that his leader is going to be the savior for us all. I don't think they want you thinking too deeply about it, because President Trump has provided a wonderful distraction. But it's really the same people, the same thinking, and really the same leader in the sense that he was Trudeau's economic advisor. So I don't think people are going to be seeing much different. Who are voting Conservative this time? Young people. They have seen enough. They want real change. People whose paychecks have not kept up with their bills. They don't have the luxury of voting Liberal again. And I believe our party is the choice of people working in the trades, people traveling, working in resources, people working in fishing, farming, forestry, and the people that economy supports. I think of people in the healthcare system. I ask listeners of this debate to consider whose voice will be most effective for our riding, and I would ask you to support me. Vote Alan McMaster.
Thanks very much. And last but not least, Ms. Wool, please.
Check, check. Hi, good evening, friends. I want to thank you. It's truly an honor to stand before you this evening. This is already a win, a dream come true. I am very honored to have been asked before he passed away, the founder of Cape Breton Live TV, Wayne Cressada, to join forces with 2 registered companies. And he had all the old equipment, and I was a little reluctant. I didn't know his audience. He had a very strong crew at the other end of Cape Breton fighting for Nova Scotia equalization fairness with the city of Halifax, and just a lot of work had gone into it that I was unaware of, moving back from Alberta. I come from Ontario. I moved out to Cape Breton when I was younger with my family. I was like other youths. As soon as high school hit, I went out west at the ripe age of 15 on my own. Entrepreneur at heart. I grew up in Cape Breton in the very pivotal years before the internet hit, and that was my age group, Generation X. And so I came here I lived with a family in Port Hood, Annie and AJ Beaton, who many 40 years drove the bus there. And Annie insisted, even though my 5 children had come back with me from out west, she said, I want you to go to St. FX and take your LSATs, no question about it. She could just see something, but I was very involved with raising my children at that time. I did. She said, I'll look after the kids. You just get to St. FX. And I came here without opening a book. And my marks weren't by any means stellar, but they were something I was proud of. So I took my LSATs to get into defense attorney, and I just felt a calling. And then I enrolled in law enforcement. I come from Alberta with a Class 1 truck driving. As a single mom out there, great friends with my ex. We both worked together very well with the children. And that's what I had to do out west, but I just found the economy was getting too much, and I wanted to come back and get some roots and build for my children a sustainable future. So I came back here, I got involved in law enforcement, and I got very tight too with the Indigenous communities here. I still to this day am so humbled to be learning constantly for the rest of my life. This brings us to why I'm here. There is 343 ridings in Canada right now, and 311 independents for the first time in history are standing up. They're leaving traditional parties because this is a chance to flip the narrative, and especially from the East Coast. There's 2 seats in Parliament from the whole of Cape Breton and Antigonish. That's not enough, folks, for influence, and regardless of who you pick. If the majority gets in, it's going to be the minority that has the weight of influence in decision making. And that means I'm here to listen to you. And with Ripple Effects growing to 1 million viewers per 28 days, 1 million engagement, it's on social media. The generations prior to baby boomers, they're on their social media. They're not watching mainstream per se. So to grab the impulsive attention, anyway, thank you.
We do have very efficient timekeepers. Sorry. Okay, we'll turn to the question portion now. Thank you all for your opening statements. The questions were sourced by you. We asked for input from the audience and for the potential audience. The questions are sourced from you. Each speaker will have 2 minutes to address the question, and then please keep your eyes over here. Okay, wonderful. So the first question, given the size of the riding and the feeling among many here that with the redistricting that has taken place, the Antigonish region has been tacked on to Cape Breton, what do you see as the key issues here in Antigonish, and what will you do to address them? And first up is Ms. Clark.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, I definitely see how big of a riding this is. I actually ran provincially as well, and for the Inverness riding, so already I know what it looks like to run in a large riding. But I do think that when we look at what connects the communities within this entire riding, we really think about how most communities are rural, and what that looks like is different than when we compare that to an urban area or the ridings that are closer to Halifax. So I think of things like cost of living and economic security, housing year-round, which is really a big problem throughout the riding. And so I think that we're at a point where we require a national policy that is going to address the need for housing, not only for people who are buying houses, people who are renting houses, people who are looking to rent houses all year round, because a lot of times we see people who don't have a place to live for the summer. And also, I think another big thing with the time I have left is rural connectivity. When we think about what that looks like as far as cell coverage and internet coverage, these are huge barriers to participating and really feeling like you have access to the necessities that we need, because we know how important that is, and also when we think about the price of that as well. So not just having access, but being able to afford that access is very important. So I think those are the main points when we think about the riding as a whole.
Wonderful, thanks very much. Mr. McMaster, please.
Thank you. I'm very excited to represent Antigonish. We feel a strong connection in Inverness County. When I used to go to the beach as a kid behind my house in Judic, I would look across and see the mainland off in the distance. So I've been looking at it since I was very young. I went to St. Avex here, enjoyed my time here. It looks a lot different today. I think I got in just at the tail end of what it used to be like in the 80s. I started in 92. I think it was even more wild in the 80s. But I had some great experiences here. And, you know, academics were one thing. But the other thing was meeting people, coming out of a small town, a small place, and coming here and meeting so many people and building confidence and learning that I was part of something bigger than the little community I came out of. So Antigonish is near and dear to my heart. I guess we don't have 3 minutes here. I think the university is important to the economy. I was part of a government where we've got a new nursing home coming here in 2027. The new health clinic in Antigonish will support 10,000 patients. The fishery is important. We'll hear more about that later. Recreation is important. It was something I valued, and it's something, if you live in an area, you need those opportunities with trails, with your arenas, and so on. I think I'll save, I think I'm out of time anyway, so I will save more comments for later.
Very good, thank you. Ms. Wall.
I had the opportunity of managing a restaurant on Main Street, and I met a lot of you there, professors, students. And when the students went back home, it was quiet here. I've also had the opportunity of meeting many people that have moved from out of country. And so I've really got to meet a diverse audience of people. I also got to meet a lot of farmers. I work at the farmers market in Halifax on Saturdays, the lower water. So I got to talk to a lot of farmers, including my own experience in working on a farm out west, driving tractor, class 1 driving truck. And so all of these experiences, little did I know, was a catalyst for understanding diverse perspectives and what it really takes for a community, a village to come together. Antigonish, the housing, the students leaving, getting through the paperwork of cutting through the time required to set up a business, because we have what it takes here to flip this around. We really do. And Antigonish started, I was just aware of this, so I won't talk on it, but the movement of Antigonish is so inspirational of the people that started that up. I was mentioned by Heather McPherson, brought it to my attention. And the one quote I want to leave you with, I won't get it fully right, but we want to in that documentary, give legs to dreams. And that's what I'm here to do as an independent candidate, is bring your dreams to life.
Wonderful, thank you. Mr. Smythe.
You can probably ask 10 people what the key issues are and get 20 different answers. I work in software, and I can pretty much guarantee that there are more than a few people in this room that have software that I've worked on. One important principle in software is you can solve almost any problem with a layer of abstraction. Now, if we start looking at any different issue and abstract out what is the problem, we get to economics. It almost invariably ends up as a funding problem. People don't have enough money. My goal is to promote freedom, free markets, because free markets are where you get innovation, creativity, new businesses, new jobs, well-paying jobs. There's poverty around. We don't need to have poverty. There's no reason for it. We live in the wealthiest age in human history. Everyone in this room has things that kings a few hundred years ago couldn't even dream of. The money's there. Where's it going? Fix the economy, get money into people's hands, and we'll see prosperity from creative people. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Batiste.
Well, first off, I'd like to talk about some of the investments we've made in Antigonish right here. $10 million for the Mulroney Institute, $29.5 million to St. FX and for Xavier Comms, and multi-millions to St. FX for research and studies, as well as twinning the highway and putting $1 million investments in affordable housing. But the question was about, the size of the riding, and it's been great. I put 5,000 kilometers on my SUV already. It's the most scenic and beautiful riding in all of Canada, and we have to show why we need to bring people here. We need to focus on the growth of the sectors. We need to focus on jobs. We need to focus on the tourism and bringing people to showcase everything that this riding has to offer. But there's also, concerns out there, and I've heard those on the doorsteps, from the what's going on in the global markets, how that's going to impact our fisheries, our farmers, our forestries, and the university community. What does this all mean to the future? And we need the best person possible at the end of the day negotiating on behalf of our country. But also, we've heard a lot about the housing issues, whether it's student or senior housing, the connectivity challenges that are continuing to be out there, the heritage that we need to hold on to. And let's face it, when we look at this riding, it's got a beautiful mosaic of Mi'kmaq, Acadian, Gaelic, and they all want to protect their language, they all want to protect their music, and they all want to work together for the betterment of this riding and all of Canada.
Wonderful. Okay, moving on to the next question. Until the current elbows up moment, perhaps, our sense of national identity and purpose has seemingly been fractured, as has our media environment, with disinformation and misinformation spread with the click of a like button. Given this environment, what role, if any, is there for government in maintaining public institutions such as the CBC, institutions of higher learning, cultural funding programs, libraries, research granting agencies, and a general sort of support for Canadian history? Mr. McMaster, you're first, please.
Well, thank you. And one of the ministries I was also responsible was for tourism, culture, heritage, communities, culture, tourism, and heritage. And I can tell you I was proud to be part of the government that for the first time in 15 years gave an increase to arts, culture, and heritage organizations to help them with their operations. I come from a family of musicians, genealogists, storytellers, and culture is something I greatly value. Valuing my own, I started taking Gaelic here at St. FX. Strangely, I knew very little about my own people. But when I came to St. FX, I started taking the language, and some of my friends knew a lot more, and I learned a lot on my own. And it's made me value other cultures as well, even more so, because I can sympathize with the plight they're in. My grandparents all spoke Gaelic. I grew up in a house where I heard a few words here and there. So I think that's incredibly important. And I think institutions play an important role as well. The world has changed, even in the last 5 years, I find. I was elected 15 years ago, and things were a lot simpler then. But people are getting their news through other sources now. It's happening right in the moment, and the world is changing. But I think it's important that government is there to fund these core groups that are providing experiences, whether it's with music, the arts, heritage. They're part of who we are, and I'd want to see a government continuing to support them to the fullest. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Clark.
Thank you. When we look at this riding, and we look at Canada in particular, we can't help but think of the important role that CBC plays in news. And it is important that we protect that for Canada, because, as I mentioned before, a lot of our communities are rural communities, and a lot of times CBC may be the only news outlet that they have access to, whether that be through radio or TV. It's also very important to Francophone communities, which we've mentioned prior, who are in this riding, as they are largely influential to the spread of their language and protecting that. And so it's very important in that sense as well to protect language for our Francophone communities here. So we know that protecting culture, protecting language, and the importance of getting good news, getting news that is relevant to people, to its residents, and one of those institutions is the CBC, and so we need to see that protected at all costs for all Canadians. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Mr. Batiste.
Yeah, I think that institutions like the CBC, I mean, can you think of a Canada without CBC, without Hockey Night in Canada, without this hour has 22 minutes, all of these great things that CBC has brought to us. As a kid, I remember watching the Raccoons. These are things that we treasure, and we think about our country and think about how valuable it is. And that's why Mark Carney's plan and the Liberal plan is to strengthen local news with more local bureaus and reporters so that all Canadians have access to timely, relevant, and reliable news. It's also important to the safety, not just for the content, the heritage, but it's all CBC, and we know how vital reporting can be, especially going through Hurricane Fiona, where many of us were out without power for as many as 11 days. We know that's something that's going to happen in the future. We need a strong CBC and these strong public broadcasting to ensure that we're doing everything we need to do. And that's why we're going to invest $150 million in funding to increase long-term fundings leveled in line with that. And let's not kid ourselves. The music that comes from the support for the music, that supports from the arts, the support from our community is highlighted in the CBC. And Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives have said that they're going to defund this. And we have to be clear when Alan says we're he would ask that we look at funding these more. His party is running on a ticket of defunding CBC. And so we have to ensure that we elect a person who's going to stand up for everything that's our heritage, our culture, our arts community, our musicians. That's what the Liberals are going to do.
Thank you. Ms. Wall?
I think an eye-opener for me was going to Halifax one day in the city, and a man that was homeless on the street sat straight up and said, "Oh my gosh, I go to the library to get Wi-Fi to watch you," and I say that humbly. Mainstream, yes, we definitely need mainstream. There will always be. But Generation X and beyond, or before that, and I was born cusp on the internet at age 10, 11, they're on their social media. A lot of my friends, their channels were shut down when restrictions were placed, so we missed a lot of grassroots voices, marginalized voices, remote communities, and each community in rural Nova Scotia is so unique. I've had the opportunity of doing over 9,000 interviews in the past 9 years. That includes Parliament, Ministers of Parliament, Greg Fergus, musicians, everyone. I did a show with Scotland and brought the musicians together with Cape Breton Island. Seeing this, not even realizing where this would lead, has really opened my eyes to seeing the need of, yes, mainstream, but also the fact that people are watching social media, and to bring together diverse languages and cultures is so important, especially farmers markets, farmers, so everyone. That's what's key. That's what puts pressure on the traditional parties. That's what gives voice, especially to the East Coast. And I'm very proud that the social media presence now of these two companies, Ripple Effects and Wayne's, is at 1 million viewers per 28 days and 1 million engagement. That's top tier numbers, data and analytics. And that was amateur growth growing to this point, and it has led to this day today. So yes, we do need collaborative voices. Each community is so important, and that's what's given me the opportunity to sit with everyone, sit with so many people, a variety right across the board, collaborative, bipartisan. That's what I'm about in taking the voice to Ottawa and putting the right kind of pressure.
Thank you. And Mr. Smythe?
Mentioning defunding the CBC, absolutely. The CBC doesn't need government funding if people like it. If people want the CBC, they'll pay for it. When you want something, you pay for it. You go to a restaurant, you pay. Nothing in life is really free. When you get free services on the internet, I work in software. Let me tell you, it's a nightmare. You don't want to really actually know what's going on. For the CBC, it can be sold off to local stations, or it can simply transition to a regular, normal business model. There's nothing wrong with that. Failure is not always a bad thing. Failure can be good. In the markets, failure tells you that people didn't like this, they didn't want it. That's a good thing to know, because then you don't go do that. So you find things that people like, and you deliver goods and services that people appreciate and will pay for. If the CBC is worth it, it doesn't need government funding. When it comes to topics like Gaelic, I was not very fortunate. When I begged my grandmother to teach me Gaelic, my mother dragged me away. Don't bother Grandma. So I never got to learn Gaelic either. My daughter, she is resisting, but kind of learning Vietnamese. My wife is Vietnamese, so she understands it, but she doesn't really speak it very much. So, when they go back to Vietnam for the summer, she talks to her cousin in English because her cousin's English is really good. Programs that people want. Sorry, my time's up. I apologize.
Well, thank you, Mr. Smythe. Okay. Our next question pertains to the large Indigenous presence in our riding and the increased attention to Indigenous issues amongst Canadians over the past few years. How do you foresee the federal government implementing UNDRIP, the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, the TRC's 94 calls to action, and do you support Indigenous people's right to, quote, free, prior, and informed consent over the use of their lands. And first off will be Ms. Wall.
As I mentioned, I've had the humble opportunity to work very closely with knowledge keepers and elders over the past 6 years. And well, since I was a child, I had the opportunity to actually live with an Ojibwe family in Ontario. Indigenous rights are foundational to our identity as Canada, as a nation, and it's time to stand alongside communities with genuine respect and unwavering support for treaty rights. Promoting land rights and recognizing the sovereignty of Indigenous nations that's going to be the stick in the wheel, folks. No sooner do I do a jacket up coming from a funeral and I'm off putting another one on to go to another funeral. It's a cycle that we must come together and break. And the only way that is going to be broken is by a collaborative approach, a delicate approach, but yet reconciliation cannot be a buzzword. It cannot be something we just roll off our tongue. It's about recognizing treaty rights. Murray St. Clair said, "It's not our job to teach non-Native people how to reconcile." And how true is that? So it's about coming together and strengthening the voices of Indigenous. It's more than just words. We must address the injustices of the past and work towards a future. There's so much potential in coming together with the Indigenous people and hearing their wisdom. The communication style is different. That's why we have to learn to listen and come together.
Thank you. Mr. McMaster.
Thank you. When I was at St. FX, Political Science 100, one of our subjects as part of that course was looking at the experience of First Nations peoples. And I was quite struck by it. And years later, I met Danny Paul, who many of you would know, a human rights activist in this province. And Danny and I became friends. And so you have to learn from people, and you have to learn from their experiences. And he worked with Indian and Northern Affairs for many years. He was an accountant, and he always talked to me about, he always felt that efforts to help sometimes didn't make it all the way to the actual people. And he felt that people should care enough to ensure that there is accountability, to ensure that people are getting help, that they're getting the support they should be getting that's designed to help them. I think about one of his wishes was to see that the Cornwallis statue be removed from the park in Halifax. And I raised it in the legislature, and I raised it because I often thought of how painful it would be for somebody, a young person from this province, Mi'kmaq person in this province, to go to the capital to see Cornwallis placed up on a pedestal. I think history is important, but when you place people on pedestals, you have to think about that. You have to think about that, how that affects people. And particularly with his, the experience from his presence here in our province. So I am empathetic towards the plight of First Nations people. And I have worked with people in Wakaba First Nation while I was MLA there. And I think you need to be close to the people. You need to have good communication with them. You need to be listening and trying to help them with whatever they're raising towards for you to raise with government. Thank you.
Mr. Batiste.
Well, Alan, thank you for that question. And it's been my absolute honor for the last 6 years to be the chair of the Indigenous Liberal Caucus, which means I got to speak to the Prime Minister and Cabinet about Indigenous issues in this country every single National Caucus meeting. And in that time, we saw our investments go from $15 billion in terms of investments in Indigenous people to over $33 billion because of that advocacy. We've seen for the first time ever a first Indigenous Language Commissioner. We've seen the first ever Indigenous Governor General, and we've seen the first ever Indigenous Supreme Court of Canada Justice. And Carney has assured me that we will not take steps backwards on reconciliation. And for your specific questions on UNDRIP, I'm proud that my father was one of the original drafters of the UNDRIP actual United Nations document. And I was so proud to get that over the finish line in the House of Commons. When it comes to the Truth and Reconciliation Commissions, we have fulfilled or in ongoing at least 80% of those. But keeping in mind that 50% of the calls to action call for ongoing funding, that you can never click a box and check off and say yes. Free prior informed consent, absolutely. Mark Carney's going to help build this country, but we're going to build it together with Indigenous people. The Conservatives, in contrast, voted against UNDRIP. The Conservatives voted against every Indigenous measure, and when I stood up in the House asking for unanimous consent on the First Nations clean water legislation, the Conservatives shot me down and wouldn't let me get it to the Senate, despite working collaboratively every step of the way with them at committee. So that's what you're going to get with Conservatives, and I'd ask that when we're talking about Indigenous issues, we can't afford to take steps going backwards.
Mr. Smythe?
I'll ask the question again. What kind of Canada do you want to live in? Do you want a government that has had 10 years to give First Nations clean water and hasn't managed to do it, but now they want to blame the Conservatives all of a sudden? They've had 10 years. That's a long time. 10 years of utter failure. I'm not going to pretend that I know much of anything about First Nations issues. That is not my area of expertise. I'm not a politician. What I do know is that private property rights are important. And for the First Nations, for their land, they should be able to do what they want with their own private property. But there are problems there where the First Nations don't have property rights the same as all other Canadians. And this is a problem. Property rights are a fundamental principle that you'll find, throughout different schools of economics and whatnot. In your Marxian schools, you'll find that they don't like it at all. But private property is wealth. We want people to have wealth. And getting the government out of people's way and fulfilling your promises are important.
Okay, thank you very much. And Ms. Clark.
So I think what's really important here is we know that there's been a lot of collaboration with many different groups over years, committees, meetings, and we have the roadmaps to justice from committees like the Truth and Reconciliation Committee, the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls Inquiry. So we know what the asks are. And it's time that we follow up on those, and they are being followed up on now, and we need to take it a step further. And when we talk about, access to land, free and informed consent, that also means being accountable to making sure that the land that is there is livable, is safe. So it's also important to keep in mind prioritizing clean drinking water, which is something that we even have problems with here, very locally, in the Indigenous communities that just up the road from us. And we need to be able to turn on the radio and not hear that a community is on a boil order. We need to address those infrastructure gaps that we see in the communities, and we also need to keep in mind that we need to protect the environment of those communities as well. So in respecting that, we won't be proposing expansion of pipelines without consulting with the communities in which that pipeline would potentially or not pass through. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This academic year, the Mulroney Institute has convened a Sober Second Thinkers series, that's a tongue twister, pardon me, for me, where we've hosted and heard from senators from throughout the region. One thing the senators emphasized was the level of partisanship, not in the Senate, but next door in the House of Commons. What do you envision as your role as a parliamentarian in safeguarding our democracy, promoting peace, order, and good government, and addressing the kind of partisan divides within our country? And Mr. Smythe, you have the first question.
Let's be realistic. I'm not going to get elected. So, let's be honest. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not a politician, I do software, I work online, my work is worldwide, me elected is not going to happen. Really, what's going to happen is either Hamey or Alan here are going to be sitting for us. That's the reality. In the fantasy land where I get elected, I will work to give you as much freedom as possible, civil freedoms, civil liberties, economic freedoms. That's what I would work towards because I trust people. I think that you are the best person to run your life, and I don't think government should be telling you how to run your life or how to spend your money, which is what they do when they take your taxes. So, anyway, I will return the rest of my time because we all know what the reality here is. Thank you very much.
Mr. Smythe, I appreciate your honesty, but also your passion. That's very impressive. Yeah. Ms. Clark, please.
Yeah. How do you follow that up? I think when we're talking about going to the polls on April 28th, and I did allude to this in my opening statement as well, and I will allude to it again in my closing. I'm also pretty aware of the narrative that is happening right now. Anytime I get up to speak in front of anyone, anything I say and, when I share my beliefs or what I feel this riding deserves, I try to come at it from a point of humanity, morality, and integrity. And without that, we really don't have a good foundation. And so whether you walk into the polls and you check my box or any other box that's there, I just hope that you're voting for somebody who does represent you and who you feel is going to benefit yourself, your riding, your communities, because really at the end of the day, regardless of the party that we're representing, we believe in success, opportunity, and the growing of our communities. And so I'm also not living in a fantasy world. As much as I appreciate any vote, the reason I'm here is to make sure that we keep accountability and transparency and integrity within our governments, regardless of who we're electing. Thank you.
Mr. Batiste.
Yeah, I believe that collaboration is important. I think that one of the beautiful things about this country of ours that we live in is it's just not a two-party system, that we get to hear the Green, we get to hear the NDP, we get, yes, even the PPC, we get to hear from them. But one of the things is I've always believed in collaboration between governments. I've believed in that we get things done when we work together with federal, provincial, municipal, and Mi'kmaq governments in this place. And we can build on those models. And one of the things that Mark Carney has always said is that he's not a politician, he's a pragmatist. And I think that message of getting things done in this moment is what we need. And I think that is why, when we looked at 85% of the Liberal votes that went into the last Liberal leadership went to a non-politician, someone with a PhD in economics, someone who knows how to get things done, someone with experience. If you pull out your $20 bill, you're going to see Mark Carney's signature probably on that because he gets things done and he knows how to move forward. And one of the things what I've seen in the House of Commons over the past 2 years since Pierre Poilievre took over was copying of the playbook of Donald Trump, creating fear, creating division, creating animosity. He's been taking everything that Trump's been saying and applying it and hoping that that works in Canada. But I think Canadians are smarter than that. And we're at the fourth question now, and I've talked over and over again about Mark Carney's plan. I haven't heard Alan mutter Pierre Poilievre's name once. And the reality is, that's the person, if you put your check mark by Alan McMaster, You're giving a chance of Pierre Poilievre being the next Prime Minister of this country. And that's a scary thought, to have Pierre Poilievre and Donald Trump together in North America. We got to prevent that. We need to vote Liberal.
Mr. McMaster?
This country owes a great deal to Pierre Poilievre for one reason. Justin Trudeau is gone. And thank God for that. I'm going to be more positive after delivering that jab. In this province, there was an entire year where we did not have responsible government, and it bothered me greatly. It was during the pandemic, and other legislatures right across the country, including Parliament, did sit, certainly reduced number of days, but we didn't even have a functioning legislature here for an entire year. That was wrong. No responsible government. The whole point of electing people to sit in a legislature or a parliament is to debate. And to me, opposition time, I spent 12 years in opposition, it's very important. And I believe debate is good. Have the courage to face it. So I want to recognize Mo Smith, who's in the audience tonight. Morris was MLA for Antigonish here. He and I both went in 2009 in a by-election. And I have to tell you, that NDP government was excellent to work with. They were good people. You could walk across the aisle, have a discussion about something that was important in the constituency that you were representing, that listened to you, and you know what? They'd try to help you out. So credit to them, because really, that's what it's about. If you can be in there with your heart in the right place to help people, you're going to be a good representative. And that's what I will aim for. And I always think about that NDP government as a reminder to myself of what a good example it is if you are government and how to treat the opposition.
Thank you. Ms. Wall?
On the flip side, no matter who you choose, red, blue, if that's what we're getting at right here, this is our chance in this area of rural Nova Scotia to choose an independent. There's less restrictions. There's an ability to rattle cages. And that might sound like strong, but you know, I'm not everyone's cup of tea. I realize that. And at this point, that's your ante in going into government, going into parliament. I founded the 7th generation government, 7GG, with the elders of Indigenous communities, with them supporting and signing and endorsing. And when the snap election happened, they had to encourage me to divert and go into independent candidate. That's why I'm here. And lo and behold, without even realizing it, I was told by one of my team members, Rebecca, there's 343 ridings, 311 independents that have left traditional parties because this is their chance to hold, even if main party gets in, to hold that weight of influence. And this is where the weight of influence can come. I keep saying, and maybe repetitive, the plot twist, it's going to come from here, whether it's now or next term. I'd like to see it come this term. So when you go to the polls and discreetly make your vote, think about that. I encourage you, I ask you, I invite you, don't vote in fear. Don't vote because it's just something you've naturally have done. This is the chance in history to make, it's pivotal, to make a turning point for the young people, the next 7 generations. That's what this is about.
Thank you. Donald Trump is the President of the United States. What makes you think that you, your party, and your leader are the best people to deal with Donald Trump and with the economic headwinds that we find ourselves facing? Mr. Batiste.
I think Mark Carney is one of the most qualified prime ministers we've ever had in this country. He's the right person for the right moment. You know, when I got to first talking to Mark Carney, he talked about his hockey scholarship to go play Harvard, where he took economics and would go on to get a PhD in economics. He knows the global financial systems. He knows how to push back on Trump. He knows how the markets operate. But he also knows that markets don't have values, people do. And that's why we guide the markets as people and politics. And when we're thinking about the contrast, we have possibly the most experienced person who's taken on roles at the Bank of Canada and the Bank of England and guided them through crises. Mark Carney is ready for this role. He's ready, and he's asking Canadians to stand together and fight together. He's asking provinces to be part of this, a Team Canada approach. And on the other hand, we have Pierre Poilievre, who has no experience with any kind of collaboration, with any kind of negotiation for our country, and someone who's copied Trump all steps of the way, from his playbook about saying Canada is broken, to dividing our country, to all of the things that Trump has done, Pierre Poilievre has emulated. And so how can we ask someone who emulates him, who copies him, to stand up to him? I don't think we can. We have to vote for Mark Carney.
Ms. Clerk.
Thank you. I think one thing that's really important, we keep hearing people talk about what's going to happen, what we're going to do against Trump. How will we handle Trump? One thing that is being forgotten is what's going to happen to the workers that are going to be affected. I'm not going to pretend to be any kind of expert on Canada's foreign relations. It's clear, though, that the global system that Canadians are accustomed to has been thrown into disarray. Trump is endeavoring to replace the system based on international law with something transactional, and even more unapologetically based on raw power, something ugly and dangerous. Today, Canada's foreign relations clearly begin with defending our sovereignty, and this isn't going to be a short crisis. The focus here clearly is going to be on defending our economy, on people's jobs. Just as the NDP pushed for CERB during the COVID pandemic, we'll be pushing for strong supports for workers during the coming tariff war. Beyond this, though, Canada needs to defend its values. Canada has a tradition of supporting the disadvantaged through foreign assistance, of supporting the United Nations, of peacekeeping, and so on. We must hold to that tradition, working with like-minded partners around the world. Finally, no one should forget that the real elephant in the room, the one that eclipses even Trump, is the climate emergency. So when we hear all of these different, this narrative has really taken over this election, and it's really important that we don't forget about the systems that were already fractured and that will continue to fracture if we don't pay attention to them quickly.
Mr. Smith.
I keep hearing Carney, 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 Trump, Trump, Trump. Well, Carney is a globalist. He's not going to put Canada first. At the Bank of England, he drove up inflation to around 11%, some of the highest in Europe. It's like he was trying to compete with Greece or Argentina. Now, for Trump, he's bombastic, and he's literally the guy that wrote The Art of the Deal. He wrote that book. He's a businessman. He is not a politician. And he's playing hardball in his negotiations. And it's not fun. He just tripled, some postage rates going into the U.S. for parcels, commercial parcels, from $25 to $75, and in another class from $50 to $150, and then there was another class going from 30% to 90%, already on top of other hikes. The American people aren't going to like this. None of the tariffs are going to help the American people. It's a negotiating tactic. And Mark Carney is not going to be able to deal with Trump because he hates him. And do you think Trump's going to, deal well with that? No. He's going to have all kinds of fun insults and jokes and whatnot, and he'll come up with a funny nickname for Mark. But Mark Carney is not going to get the job done. You need to go in with a business mindset, thinking about the markets, the economy, and trade. And Maxime Bernier is the only leader that's going to do that. Well, Pierre might, but I think Max would be better.
Thank you very much. Mr. McMaster.
Thank you. Does anybody remember the book Animal Farm by George Orwell? Remember that book? The Liberal election strategy is as simple as Trump bad, Carney good. And for God's sakes, don't look at the horrible government we've been providing you these last 9+ years. I don't think any one person, no matter who they are, can walk down to the U.S. and change Donald Trump's mind. It's not possible, and we all know that. I will say, if we had a wealthy banker as the head of the Conservative Party, what would the Liberals be saying? They'd be saying he's out of touch with you and I. They'd be saying he has interests that may not be in our interest. Being an international, being a globalist, being a very wealthy person with connections all over the world, they'd be saying those things to say, don't vote for Carney. But because he's with them, they're content with him, I guess. What I think we need to do, we need to take a more sophisticated approach. We've got a paper mill in Point Tupper. Most of its paper goes down to the U.S. We have a seafood industry it's about to start. It's started in some communities already. We need the United States as a trading partner. We need a sophisticated approach working with companies that are on both sides of the border to find ways to convince all of the elected officials why we need to stay close together in terms of being trading partners. We need to work with elected representatives in the United States. We need to work with consumers in the United States who are all going to be paying higher prices with tariffs on the goods they're buying if those tariffs stick. We need to find win-win approaches, and we need to find common ground. We need to have cooler heads prevail, and no one person is going to walk down there and change things. It's going to take a much more sophisticated approach.
Thank you very much. Turning slightly to issues in the U.S. more broadly, they often have a big impact on Canadians. Given the assault in the United States on women's bodily autonomy, the demonization of 2S LGBTQI people. Oh my gosh, sorry, Ms. Wall. Jeez, Louise, I'm so sorry.
That man likes to see people scurry and run around like mice and do exactly what we're doing, focusing on him. We need someone that can rattle cages, bipartisan, bringing together voices. We need that. South of the border is one thing. Becoming independent here on the East Coast, you, the people, you have what it takes. We grew up this way. We learned how to be resilient. We learned how to harvest, grow, thrive, make it with nothing. Entrepreneurship. You know, we have people that are literally not even leaving their house because they're so anxious when they hear that word or see orange hair flying in the wind. I don't even know how to describe the mind behavior control that is being used on social media in repetitively hearing and talking and repeating that name. No different than the experiment at the Toronto Royal Museum. Somebody bites a lemon, you're sitting there watching them, and you don't have a lemon, you're going to mirror exactly what they do. That's what we're doing. We are doing exactly what he has in. We need self-sustainability, independence, resilience, the voice of the people. And by the way, he's forgetting that there's 1,800 sovereign nations of Indigenous people across Turtle Island. My Lord, when they stand up to come to face this, you guys, free trade, currency, constitution, there's so much that I wish I could get into tonight, but it's not the night.
Again, my apologies, Ms. Wall. Events in the United States often have a big impact on Canada, spilling across our border. Given the assault in the United States on women's bodily autonomy, demonization of 2S LGBTQIA+ people, debates over campus free speech, and the rounding up and deportation of illegal and legal migrants without due process, how can parliamentarians in this country shield individual rights and protect marginalized communities? Ms. Wall, I'll give the first question to you.
Okay. Moving May. Every individual deserves a right to freely and live an authentic life. And championing the rights of this community, two-spirit, let's say them out loud, two-spirit, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, or questioning, intersex, and asexual, is essential. Each identity with this acronym represents a unique experience and deserves recognition and respect and protection. We must confront common misconceptions that hinder from acceptance. For instance, some believe that becoming this community is just a phase. In reality, sexual orientation and gender identity, They're intrinsic aspects of who a person is. It's woven into our communities. It's another misconception that they're all the same, but we're incredibly diverse. It's a wide range of identities and experiences, and it's crucial to understand that most individuals feel that their identity is inherent and unchangeable. It's a harmful notion that transgender individuals are merely confused. They have a clear understanding of their gender identity, and as they navigate through their journeys, we need to honor that and respect that. Those are anything in the schools, though, teaching that to younger children, those are behind closed doors conversations between the families, the caregivers, the parents, and their higher power. That is not to come into politics. The fight for equality continues, and we must remain vigilant. Is that for me? In our efforts to protect the rights of everyone, regardless of their sexual orientation.
Thank you. Ms. Clark.
Thank you so much. It's interesting. I had a conversation last night at an event, and it stuck with me all day. So the NDP has put forward pharmacare, which allows free birth control. And I had somebody ask me, why are we doing that? Why is that important? That means that women can do whatever they want with their bodies. And that was a step back for me in 2025, where we are right now. It took me a second to take a breath and realize that maybe they just don't understand. We need to protect rights to birth control. This seems maybe a little off topic, but when we talk about that, we talk about gender identity and bodily autonomy. Birth control can be something that acts as preventative care. Maybe somebody identifies as transgender, and they want to stop a period. This is preventative care, and that's what I told this person. But something we need to remember is that as a government, we cannot be putting forward policies that will hide or shame anybody that is in a marginalized community. And we need to recognize that those communities often face other barriers, different barriers, and we need to support that. So one example would be access to mental health services. That is going to ensure that people in marginalized communities will have access to safely work through what they are identifying as. As a teacher, I see this every day, not every day, once a cycle in our day, and we have the opportunity for students to share their pronouns if they want. Every day we're giving them an opportunity to be in a safe place to learn and to learn their identity and express themselves. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McMaster.
Well, no matter who you are, when I think about what's most important for all of us, and for all if you have children and so on, it's the ability to be able to have a place to live, be able to live in a country where the economy is such that you can have employment, that your paycheck can actually pay for your bills. I met a woman during my campaigning who has had to take a second job because her check has not kept up with the cost of living. She can pay most of her bills, but she has had to start to buy her groceries on her credit card, and to avoid digging into her savings to pay that off, she's taken a second job. And she was telling me, you know, when you're living like that, there's not much fun anymore in life because you're just working. So no matter who you are, I think the government's role, primary role, has to be to try to make it so that people have housing, that their paychecks pay the bills. We need to get young people focused in the trades and working in the parts of the economy where there are good incomes. And housing, what a wonderful way to keep the money local. If people are working in housing, most of the materials and all the labor is in the local economy. I also think we need, of course, to help people who cannot work, people who need help. We need an economy that's working so that it's generating the revenues so that we can help those people. and we were talking about having an energy corridor across this country and having shovel-ready zones, we can't just do what the Liberals do and add a bunch of debt. We're paying more interest on the debt they've added since they've doubled it in the history of this country than the federal government is sending around to the provinces to run the healthcare system.
Thank you. Mr. Batiste.
Well, I think that it's important to say that, we see a lot of concerns about what's going on in the United States, and we've got to make sure that Canada doesn't follow suit. I'm happy to say I'm pro-choice. I will always believe in a woman's right to choose. I think that our government has been clear that we need to protect that right. In more local terms, it's important to know that the Liberal government invested $1.25 million to the Antigonish Women's Resource and Sexual Assault Center for programming. One of the things I was most proud of was during my time was to be able to move forward on an Indigenous Women's Resilience Center that's not even in my riding, it's in the riding of where Truro is. And this was important to Indigenous women who've been dreaming about this for 30 years, and we were able to make that a reality. We have a lot of work that we need to do to making people feel accepted and tolerated and to support the marginalized. One of the things that I've understood is that in 2023, Canada was referred to as one of the most gay-friendly countries in the world. And that's a great thing to celebrate, but we also have to continue to make sure that we're doing the work on there. But also, we have to think about, when you talk about the marginalized, we're talking about people with disability. And it's important for us to realize that, our government is the first ever one to introduce a disability benefit. It was the single largest line item of $6 billion in the last budget. And I had a woman from Shetty Camp ask me, Jaime, if you're elected, make sure that you always have a disability lens on everything. And as my best friend is married to a woman with a disability, my neighbor also has a disability in a wheelchair. It's something that I've come to understand and know that we need to do more to help those in marginalized communities. And so while it's important to look at budgets, it's also important to have a heart and care for our neighbors, our community members, and I think that's really where Canadians want us to be in this point in time, is to helping each other and providing for each other.
Thank you. Mr. Smythe.
This question is really kind of all over the place. There's a wide range of things in there. I'm going to start by saying I don't do identity politics. It's a human rights code. Human. That isn't very difficult to understand. People are people, and you don't get to treat people like they're less than people. So enough with that. Mentioning bodily autonomy. My body, my choice. Your body, your choice. But that goes for everything. That goes for vaccines, whether you want them or not. That's up to you. That's your decision. What kind of milk that you want to drink, as Ms. Wall has pointed out several times in the past. So, when it comes to bodily autonomy and things like that, we need to simply respect each other as humans and stop playing identity politics, stop trying to divide people. We can come together and cooperate. A friend of mine is a communist. Not just any communist, he's a Marxist-Leninist communist. That's the kind that's, line you up against the wall. And, we joke and, he says, I'm going to line you up against the wall. But it's good fun. But we can get along. We don't have to agree with each other. And we can still have fun and respect each other.
Be a fly on the wall for that. Yeah, great. Okay, our final question here pertains to the world. From the wars in Ukraine and Gaza to Donald Trump's own trade wars and threats to annex Greenland, Panama Canal, and Canada, the world seems in chaos. What role do you envision Canada playing on the world stage? Ms. Clark?
Specifically, I would like to take this time to focus on the war in Palestine. But I think that this can be also considered in a broader context. The NDP has advocated for peace in the Middle East for decades. It has called for an end to the genocide and an end to the occupation, and for a real peace process that will permit Israelis and Palestinians to live in peace and with full respect for their human rights. We reiterate our call for a ceasefire and the release of all the hostages. In the current context, the NDP supports imposing a two-way arms embargo on Israel, ending Canadian involvement in illegal Israeli settlements, addressing anti-Palestinian racism and protect freedom of expression on Palestine, recognizing the state of Palestine, and protecting and funding Gaza relief efforts. Beyond these, New Democrats also support sanctions on Netanyahu and his cabinet members who have enabled genocide in Gaza. We also support investigations by the International Criminal Court and the International Court of Justice into war crimes and genocide, and would uphold ICC warrants. New Democrats also want the safe return of all hostages, peace, and justice for everyone in the region.
Thank you. Mr. McMaster.
Thank you. I can think of a number of things that Canada could do. I think about, this is one that's important to me if I'm elected. I think about the environment, and I think about all the consumer goods we have, and how there are no protections in place for consumers for minimum lifespans. We are buying things now that are either broken or they're starting to break. It's not good for the environment. We talked a little bit about globalization tonight. It's good for some people. It's good for the people that are making the money off it. But a lot of our goods are not made to last. And that's not good for people who are trying to pay their bills and trying to buy something that lasts. So I think minimum lifespans, I think right to fix. You can buy a washing machine now, and in a couple of years' time you can't buy parts for it. That's by design. We have to take control back for consumers, and that will be also good for the environment. And if we as a country start doing that and working with other countries to do that, I think that's something that could be very positive for our world. I think about food. We have a fishery. We have to ensure that it remains sustainable by ensuring that conservation measures are enforced, period. We supply a lot of food in the world. I think about energy. When Russia invaded Ukraine, what happened? The price of energy, the oil and gas spiked. Nova Scotia Power had to buy it at that high price, and it actually still hasn't been fully passed on to us, that cost. Our country is a safe country. We care about the environment. We can provide the world energy in ways that are much cleaner and safer than other countries are doing that. We should be doing that for the world. So those are, you know, and I think food too, like local food. I know if we're talking about the rest of the world, but if we're producing food here for ourselves, I think that's critical. And what greater measure of your wealth is there than when you are able to eat good, healthy local food and not something that's fake and full of ingredients that are as a list as long as your arm that are not good for you.
Thank you. Ms. Wall.
When it comes to in the East, the Palestine, in Gaza, it's a two-tier approach. No one human leader can fix this. It's not an overnight solution. It's going to take local and international voices collaboratively coming together. And our international relationships are so key. Our dedication to human rights, our partnerships, the more that we interconnect ourselves, especially from the East Coast in an area where, again, we only have 2 seats in Parliament, we're sitting on the cusp of something quite huge from this area. Ironically, of all places, a place Canada never saw coming. Because we're so diverse here, because it's going to take a collaborative approach to this. And so that's prioritizing dialogue over conflict and collaboration, really, truly listening, not getting distracted by issues that don't necessarily pertain to us. That we need to focus on who we have here locally, and then reaching out globally and building those, forming those relationships. As far as availability of affordable housing is essential, advocating for innovative solutions that prioritize accessibility, ensuring that everyone, no matter who or where they're from, feels safe and we have affordable living situations. It's about the voice of the people. And as I said in the beginning, each community is insular here in East Rural Nova Scotia. They're so unique, each community. And that's why to answer this in a 2-minute it's going to take ongoing conversation, and I look forward to sitting down with people from all different cultures and hearing what they have to say to take their voice to Ottawa.
Great. Mr. Smythe.
Canada on the world stage. Talking about Israel, Palestine in 2 minutes? Yeah, I'm not going to go there at all. So what should Canada be doing? We shouldn't be pretending that we're morally superior to people. We should pull back foreign aid, only have humanitarian aid. We should stop trying to push our policies on other countries. Respect them for who they are. They get to run their country their way. It's their house. This is our house. We should be able to run our house our way, right? Now, mentioning climate and whatnot, this is a good thing, because there's a lot of Canadian dollars that are being spent abroad on that. There are a lot going to the UN as well. Get that money, bring it back home, spend it on Canadians who need it, or just don't tax it in the first place. Planned obsolescence. It is really funny. This is part of what I do for a living, is looking into things like this. And you'll have things like the port on your phone, it's going to break. And there's a connector inside your phone that is specifically designed to fail. Like when you have planned obsolescence, you're creating waste. This has been going on since the light bulb. When, I won't get into that. Anyway, keep Canadian money home, humanitarian aid only, and stop pretending that we're morally superior to other people. Let them run their lives their way, and we'll do it our way.
Thank you. Mr. Batiste.
I think that Canada's role has always been one of peacekeeper. We're known for being some of the politest people, most respectful people in the world, and we have allies that have helped us build and help other countries. And I do feel that it's at some point we may meet our makers, and we're very gifted as Canadians. We're born into a great country, a safe country, a country that's free from war. But it's always going to be important for us to realize that not everyone in this globe was born into that privilege, and that it's our responsibility as human beings to help each other. And what Canada has always been is a peacemaker, but also a rebuilder when required. But we can't pretend that 2 months ago we woke up to a different reality, and we had our greatest ally suddenly bring us into a trade war that no one asked for. And I was proud to stand with Mark Carney in Halifax as he announced that we need to decrease our reliance on the United States. We need to increase our own defense. We need to ensure that we expand the capabilities of the Navy with new submarines and the additional heavy icebreakers to defend the North. We could have a naval base right here in Canso. We have the ability to do that and protect both sides of this province. It's going to be an important thing for us to invest more in defense, make sure that we're filling all of the spots in the Canadian Armed Forces, the shortage of almost 15,000 members that we need. We need to do more to reinforce our ability to defend ourselves, because we just simply cannot rely on the United States anymore, and we have to build, and that means jobs. That means growth, that means protecting our country, that means protecting our North, and that's what Canada needs to continue to do.
Thank you. Our speakers were very efficient with time, so we're coming in. We even got an extra question. We're coming in at perfect timing. So we'll now have closing statements, 3 minutes each. Mr. McMaster, you're up first, please.
Well, the election is coming 2 weeks from tonight. We're all working hard here, and we're all trying to give you an option. And I'm going to mention a few things that I think are things that I would like to work on if I'm elected. I think about cell coverage in this area. I knew it was bad, but after being in Neils Harbor to Cheticamp to Canso to Cape George and all points in between, it's really bad. That is a federal responsibility. The federal government regulates that. I want to fix that. We took some steps as a provincial government. There's going to be some towers going up this summer that are government-owned. We're not going to build somebody a bigger monopoly. They're government-owned, and they'll create competition, hopefully bring prices down and service up. Road safety. I was in Seaboard Tire the other day, and I was looking at the picture of a young man who died in an accident. The truck that hit him belonged to a numbered company of a numbered company, and it wasn't insured. It's awful. Before we leave the house, if it's snowing out, we think twice about it because we know there's probably trucks on the road with drivers who have never seen snow before, and it's not their fault. There are bad actors out there, and all I can say is transport safety on our roads is important. That's something the federal government can be addressing, and that's something I want to work on. Protecting the banking industry, not for the bankers, but for you. We have a pretty good system in Canada. We didn't collapse when the American system collapsed in 2008. The CMHC, I know their rules are not really working, and we need to fix that because we need housing. We need to get rid of the red tape and make sure that it's there helping those who it's trying to help. The fishery, I mentioned it before, it's our #1 export in this province. The fishery, there's a lot of people frustrated in the fishery, a lot of people concerned about its future. I want to be working for people who are in the fishery who've made the investment and who want it to be there for their retirement and for the next person who fishes that license. Unlocking our natural resources. We are seeing inflationary times. What is the best asset to match inflation, to keep up with it? Commodities. We are full of them in this country. We need to start using them. We need to start bringing them to the world. We need to start giving jobs to the people, good paying jobs to the people who could really use them right now. People who are scared because they don't see a future where they can own a home because they've suddenly doubled and even more in price. I think the last thing that's connected to that I'll mention before I run out of time is supporting skilled trades and apprenticeship to build more of what we need, and that is going to fight inflation and create better paychecks for people. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Wall.
We're sitting on the cusp of something historical here, and I have no shame in admitting that I have a faith. It's no human leader is going to fix the problems that we're facing right now. But when you go to vote, I invite you to think of the person that's going to represent and listen to the voice of the people. I want you to think of who's going to go to Parliament with the resources and skills of communication, and I do feel I have those skills. I know I have those skills. I had no idea this is what it was going to lead to, but I do invite you to reach out to me on a personal level. I want to hear from you. We have a mindset that we're looking at the politician like deer eyes in the headlight, and looking at the politician, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? That's why we feel exasperated with broken promises. You have the power right now, in the next few weeks, in the next 14 days, to say, you know what? It's not going to make a difference, put it red or blue, but it will make a difference if we have someone that we trust will take our voice and recognize the voices in remote, rural communities that have not been heard. Because, folks, we haven't even touched a scratch surface of what the true issues are on both Cape Breton Island and throughout rural Nova Scotia in terms of drug trafficking, drugs, human trafficking, and domestic abuse. And that's very prevalent. We live on the water. So I invite you to go deeper this time in this election and to ask yourself, whoever your higher power might be, who is going to really take what they have, their skills, and go communicate that as they go to Ottawa. Thank you.
Ms. Clark, thank you very much. Ms. Clark, oh, sorry.
Okay, made it through the evening. In closing, Thank you again to Mulrooney Institute for putting on this event. In an age when civility often seems in short supply, when the disappearance of local news outlets has reduced our ability to stay in contact with one another, and when social media has reduced our concentration capabilities, made us mistrust the news and doubt factual information. Well, with all that going on, an occasion like this is unusual and especially valuable, so thank you. One of the things I wanted to be sure to say tonight concerns young people. There was a CBC piece the other day entitled, "Why Young Voters Might Not Vote in This Federal Election." As the youngest candidate in this race, and as a teacher and a mother, that concerns me, as I hope it concerns you. The article reported that the proportion of young people who actually vote has been going down and down over the past decade. There are all sorts of reasons for this, but I think it's indisputable that our electoral system has been a big contributor to young people feeling that their vote just doesn't matter that much. It is tragic that after promising Canadians in the 2015 federal election that a Liberal government would make that election the last using a first-past-the-post electoral system, the Liberals reneged on that promise. The NDP pushed and pushed and pushed, including trying to get proportional representation included under the Supply and Confidence Agreement. Both the Liberals and Conservatives enjoy huge advantages with the existing electoral system, and they want to keep it that way. So until the other parties grow a backbone and allow Canadian votes to count, here we are, stuck with a system that ensures growing cynicism about politics, politicians, and the value of voting at all. Who's going to lose most from this? Young people. So here it is, another issue along with growing inequality, poverty, homelessness, climate, and so many other issues where Canadians need strong, progressive voices in Parliament. And those aren't going to come from Conservatives or Liberals. It hardly needs saying that the NDP is not going to win the election, nor am I going to win here in Cape Breton, Canso, Antigonish. But in putting my name on the ballot, that wasn't what the most important thing for me was. I ask that on April 28th, you vote not on a misplaced case for strategic voting, which is pretty much all I've heard about this election, but instead on your values. They're what really count. Every vote cast for the NDP is a declaration that those values and those issues are important to Canadians and mustn't be shut aside. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Smythe.
I'm going to sound like a broken record, but I really do love that 1992 Bill Clinton campaign slogan, "It's the economy, stupid." You fix the economy, and so many problems go away because they're downstream from the economy. Fixing the economy is the stroke of a pen in many cases. In Nova Scotia here, we have onshore gas reserves of 69 trillion cubic feet. That's a lot of gas, but that's a provincial jurisdiction. Offshore, we've got another 2.1 trillion cubic feet just in 5 fields, and then another 121 trillion cubic feet of potential that's not being even explored. Nobody's looking at it. You've got a gold mine of wealth right here. It makes good, high-paying jobs for oil workers from Nova Scotia that go to Alberta. You get to keep your family here. There are so many benefits to simply trusting in the free market and trusting in your fellow Canadians. When it comes to Mark Carney, I am very scared. I know a lot of other people are as well. He's not like Justin. He's a lot smarter. And that makes him a lot more dangerous. He's a globalist. He is not pro-Canada. He is not going to be acting in our best interests. The Liberals are literally chipping away at people's livelihoods all the time. There are a lot of people here that hunt for deer to put food on the table. And they want to take away everybody's guns. If you have a Carrington event, there's a 10 to 12% chance per decade of one happening. You'll end up in the Stone Age and you'll wish you had a gun because none of your electronics will work. You think I'm kidding. Check it out. But I'm going to leave it there. Check out the PPC platform. Read for yourself. You'll see a common theme of enriching Canadians and making Canadians prosperous in there. Just check it.
Thank you. And Mr. Batiste.
Well, I want to start off by thanking my fellow candidates for being up here today, and I want to thank you folks for being here tonight. You've been a lovely audience. That's a musician in me that continues to remember to thank the people who've come to see you. But, you know, we do have an important election in front of us, and an election like we've never seen before. One where we're talking about our own sovereignty as a country and our ability to remain strong and free. And Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives are trying to convince you that Trump isn't a threat. Just like they tried to convince you that climate change and the climate crisis isn't real. Canadians know better. They know we need strong and serious leadership at this time who understands both. Mark Carney is that leader, and we know that from his experience and his track record. And let me be clear. Canadians didn't ask for this fight. But we know when someone drops the gloves, we have to be ready to defend ourselves. And that's what we're going to do, defend ourselves. Now, our team is prepared to fight, and we're asking your help to do it together. I'm not trying to create fear, but what I am trying to do is ask you to be prepared to work together, to work across provincial lines, to support each other during this time. We're going to need to support our neighbors. We're going to need to support each other. We're going to need to be Canada strong because tough times are ahead while Trump is in the White House. And we need to figure out how we can move forward and make sure that we keep our country, Canada, strong. Walalin, merci, Tach Belev. Thank you.
Okay, I hope, well, I'll echo Mr. Batiste in thanking all of you for coming. And I wonder if we could just have maybe one quick round of applause for our timekeepers, our security staff, the people up in the booth, and Dr. Anna Zhushlag, who organized everything. And just a shout out that we'll be having an event on the 24th of April looking at the past 100 days of Donald Trump's presidency. It's from 7 to 9 p.m. just on the second floor around the corner. And just a final round of applause for our candidates. It takes a lot of courage to do what they're doing, to stand up on stage, to have people talk to you all day, and to do, go door to door and drive, particularly in this riding, a long, long distance. So please, a round of applause for these 5 candidates here. Thank you all, and safe travels. Good night.